The beginning of change. Winter in Seoul is unusually cold. The cold wind seeps through the cracks in the small apartment windows, passing through Minsu and Jiyeon's living room. This is the space where they have lived together since the early days of their marriage, and despite its small size, it holds many memories. On the walls hang childhood drawings of Jiyeon, and Minsu's handmade wooden furniture occupies one side. This place has grown with their efforts and love. Their marriage, now entering its 16th year, has faced many challenges and trials. Recently, Jiyeon has been struggling psychologically due to conflicts with her in-laws. She takes medication every morning in an attempt to find peace of mind. Minsu watches over his wife with a heavy sense of responsibility. The happiness of his family is what matters most to him. On a weekend morning, Minsu makes coffee and looks out the window. The street, covered in a light layer of snow, seems to be quietly asleep. He is contemplating the upcoming visit to his in-laws. Jiyeon has decided not to go this time, but Minsu worries that she might regret that decision. Just then, Jiyeon emerges from the living room.
Minsu, I'll just stay home today. You go alone.
Jiyeon says quietly. Her voice carries a sense of fatigue. Minsu hesitates for a moment, then nods.
All right, I'll go alone. Don't push yourself too hard. Take some rest.
As Minsu heads to his in-laws' place, Jiyeon spends her time doing household chores. She feels relieved to have the opportunity to sort out her thoughts away from her in-laws' nagging. Yet, a sense of unease still lingers in her heart. It was hard to shake off the feeling that her efforts were being ignored. Arriving at his in-laws' house, Minsu still had to endure his mother's nagging. He tried to continue the conversation with a smile, but deep down, he blamed himself for not understanding Jiyeon's pain. Minsu cautiously speaks to his mother.
Mom, Jiyeon is going through a lot. Can't we try to understand her a bit more?
After a moment of silence, his mother nods upon seeing her son's sincere gaze.
Yes, Minsu, I know Jiyeon is struggling. I'll pay more attention.
That evening, when Minsu returned home, Jiyeon noticed a subtle change in his expression.
How did it go?
Jiyeon asked. Minsu smiled and replied,
Mom understood a bit. Let's start making changes little by little.
Though many problems remain unresolved, Jiyeon found comfort in Minsu's words. She realized that small changes can bring great hope. They decided to trust and rely on each other, determined to find the path forward together. Their story is far from over. But now they are more prepared to move forward. Believing that small changes will eventually lead to big ones, they hold each other's hands tightly. For the sake of their family's happiness, they live each day ensuring that their efforts do not go in vain.
Coming up next, a story explanation.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at a really personal story shared with us. It's from a source called In Different Times, specifically parts 1 through 5.
Yeah, think of it as a close look at one couple, Minsu and Jiyeon. We're sort of tracing their lives over, more than 15 years?
Right, a decade and a half. Navigating marriage, careers, money stuff, and some pretty intense family relationship. So our goal here isn't just to retell the story. We want to really, unpack it, understand the challenges, maybe why things got so tough, and see what we can learn about resilience, communication.
And how family bonds change under pressure. Absolutely. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The source puts us in 2007. Minsu and Jiyeon just married, small apartment near Seoul.
And right away, the source mentions the cost 200 million won, and crucially, that Minsu's parents helped them out with that.
Which, yeah, you can see how that might set up certain expectations or dynamics down the line, right? Definitely. So fast forward 16 years. The story tells us they're now a double-income family. They have a daughter, Jiyeon, who's in middle school.
And their assets have grown, clearly. But the source is very clear this was not an easy ride.
Not at all. Let's dig into some of those early challenges the source highlights.
Okay, well, a big one seems to be money. There was a point where Minsu left his job.
Yes, and that immediately shifted everything onto Jiyeon. Suddenly she's the sole breadwinner.
And the source really goes into detail about her effort here. It wasn't just, working 9 to 5.
No, it describes her working like crazy even while pregnant, pulling all-nighters, really hustling to build up client trust and basically stabilize things financially.
You can just imagine the toll that takes physically, emotionally.
Beautifully. And it's right around this time when they're financially vulnerable and she's working so hard that the main conflict really starts to brew.
The relationship with Minsu's parents.
Exactly. The in-laws. This becomes, according to the source, just this constant source of stress.
And it wasn't just vague unhappiness, right? The source gives specific examples of the criticism.
Very specific. Things aimed at Jiyeon, like comments about her clothes, her lifestyle.
Yeah, I remember reading that line. Like, Jiyeon, aren't your clothes too flashy? Young people these days? Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Which, when you think about how hard she was working just to keep them afloat, it feels pretty unfair.
And critiques about them not saving money. Again, ignoring the reality of their situation described earlier.
And that comment about remote work, ooh, that was a tough one. Saying it's something you can just do while watching a kid.
Oof. Completely dismissive of her actual professional effort.
Right. And then there were the father-in-law's comments, comparing their daughter, Jiyeon, to a deceased sister.
Yeah, that detail felt particularly painful in the narrative. It seems like it just disregards Jiyeon entirely in those moments.
So you put all these examples together, and it paints a picture of criticism that's, it feels really personal and invalidating, of her work, her identity, even her parenting.
And the source says this directly impacted their marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
More arguments between Minsu and Jiyeon.
Yes. Jiyeon especially felt like all her hard work, all the suffering she went through during those tough financial years, it was just being wiped out, ignored.
Did Minsu try to help?
Yeah.
The source mentions him being supportive.
It does. It says he apologized, suggested maybe they cut back on visits, told her, do what feels right to protect yourself.
But it wasn't that simple, apparently. The tension continued for years.
Yeah, the source describes the scene like a typical weekend morning. Jiyeon just spacing out, completely stressed about the in-laws, still.
You could almost feel that tension hanging in the air. Minsu tries to break it, suggests going to the park.
Right, and they have this brief moment of, normal family time, watching Jiyeon play. A temporary escape.
But then the phone rings.
Ugh, yes, the mother-in-law. And the source paints it as just relentless questions nagging. Why don't you visit? How are Jiyeon's grades?
It's draining. You feel Jiyeon's exhaustion reading that?
It really shows how this external thing keeps intruding on their peace. Minsu steps up again, though, with supportive words.
What did he say? Something like, you don't have to struggle anymore.
Yeah, basically, our family's happiness comes first. I'll deal with the in-law stuff. Which, the source says, comforted her, but,
The underlying anxiety is still there.
Exactly. But this pressure, combined with Minsu having her back, seems to lead Jiyeon to a kind of turning point.
She starts to feel like she needs to stand up for herself, for her family.
Yeah, a growing resolve. Deciding she won't be defined by their criticism, she needs to be brave.
And the source kind of grounds this moment by describing their apartment. Not just walls, but memories. Jiyeon's drawings, furniture Minsu made.
Right, it reminds you what they're fighting for, their core family unit.
The narrative is also honest about the toll, though. Minsu's Jiyeon needing medication for stress.
And Minsu feeling responsible, like he needed to do more to shield them.
So the first big step, according to the source, Jiyeon decides not to go on a planned visit to the in-laws.
Which sounds like a major break from routine. And Minsu goes alone. The source says he felt conflicted, but he supported her choice.
And while he's gone, Jiyeon's at home. Feeling relieved, maybe, but still bothered by that sense of being unseen.
Yeah, that feeling lingers. Meanwhile, Minsu's having this difficult chat at his parents', facing the usual stuff, but this time...
He actually says something.
He makes this, hesitant plea to his mother, explains Jiyeon's struggles, her stress, asks for a bit more understanding.
And how did that go over? Based on earlier stuff.
Surprisingly, maybe. The source describes a moment of silence. Then, the mother-in-law actually acknowledges it in a limited way. She says something like, yes, Minsu, I know Jiyeon is having a hard time. I'll pay a little more attention.
Wow. Not a total reversal, but something.
A crack in the wall, yeah. And Minsu tells Jiyeon this when he gets back, and she feels, a bit of comfort, hope, maybe, that things could actually change, even just a little.
So that kind of opens the door for, what? A calmer period?
It seems like it. Summer comes, things are outwardly calmer. But the source is clear. Jaeon's inner conflict about the whole situation isn't just gone.
Still weighing on her.
Yeah. And the story shows her going about her day, but making this conscious effort not to let her stress spill over onto Jaeon.
Which is another layer of pressure, really.
Totally. Then there's this key scene the source describes Jaeon in a coffee shop, reflecting.
Thinking about past struggles she overcame.
Right. Feeling her own strength, her resilience, but also seeing this unresolved in-law issue still sitting there. And she decides, okay, I need to speak up directly. Honestly.
Does she talk to Minsu first?
She does. Calls him, tells him her plan. And his response, totally supportive. Go ahead, do what you feel is right. I trust you.
That partnership really seems key throughout the narrative.
It really does.
Yeah.
So with his backing, she goes through with it. The source describes the conversation at the in-laws. Jiyeon lays it out her feelings, her struggles, asserting her hard work, but also trying to be understanding of them.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
Oh, for sure. And the mother-in-law's reaction this time. Initial surprise, the source says, but then a calmer apology.
Really? What did she say?
Something like, yes, Jiyeon, I'm sorry for not understanding your feelings. We were also worried about you.
Wow. Acknowledging Jaeon's feelings and offering their own perspective is worry, not just criticism.
Exactly. The source describes Jiyeon getting emotional, tearful, but saying she wants mutual understanding. And in that moment, the tension finally seems to ease. There's a real sense of hope for recovery.
That's a huge turning point.
Massive. And the source brings it back to the couple immediately. On the way home, Minsu holds her hand.
A simple gesture, but powerful.
And he tells her, you worked hard, Jiyeon. Because of you, I can live a more diligent life.
That's quite a statement. It's not just thanks for earning money, it's you inspire me.
Right. And Jiyeon reflects internally, the source says, on their shared effort, their resilience together.
So how does the narrative wrap things up?
It shows them walking together, back in their busy daily lives, but with this renewed sense of mutual gratitude, apologies flying back and forth easily. It feels like a healthier dynamic.
And Minsu plans something special.
Yeah, a date night. The source explicitly frames it as an apology for the past difficulties, especially around the in-laws, and a way to reconnect.
Where do they go?
This small Italian restaurant from their early marriage days, intentionally going back to where things started, reminiscing about the good times.
Setting the scene for reconnection.
Totally. Quiet atmosphere, recalling that initial affection. And the source says Jaeon's burden feels lighter.
What do they decide?
Just simple things, really. Let's do this more often. Let's talk more. It underscores that need for ongoing communication and intentional effort.
So the final note is one of hope, resilience.
I think so. The source emphasizes them finding comfort and encouragement in each other, acknowledging it wasn't easy, far from it, but believing they can face whatever comes next together. Through understanding and care, their effort, their love kind of shines through.
They remain each other's strength.
That's the core message, yeah.
Okay, so stepping back from the specifics, what does this deep dive into in different times really tell us? We've walked through 16 years with Minsu and Jiyeon.
And it wasn't just about money or houses. It was about shared effort, huge financial stress, and these really difficult, complex, extended family dynamics.
Yeah, their story, as told here, really highlights how outside pressures, especially that feeling of being criticized, not validated by family who maybe have different expectations, how that can seriously strain a marriage.
And it shows that finding your way back, setting boundaries, seeking understanding, it's often a slow, really difficult path. Perfect solutions aren't always possible.
What really stands out, I think, is how their resilience seems to come from their relationship. It's not just Jiyeon being tough or Minsu being supportive in isolation.
Right. It's them together. Jiyeon deciding to speak up, but Minsu's trust enabling that, his apologies, his actions, it's that partnership.
So why should you, listening, care about this specific couple's story?
Well, because the core struggles are pretty universal, aren't they? Balancing work, family, navigating tricky in-law situations. Many people face versions of this.
And it really illustrates how vital that core relationship is. It needs to be the place you get strength and validation, especially if you're not getting it elsewhere.
Okay, so here's something to chew on. What parts of Minsu and Jiyeon's journey resonated with you? Maybe experiences you've had or things you've seen in other families?
And think about this. How do couples effectively communicate their struggles, the value of their hard work, when maybe outside family members just don't see it or get it?
Yeah, and how do partners keep supporting each other through that kind of prolonged external criticism without letting it chip away at their own bond.
Lots to think about there. A really fascinating look at resilience and relationships, all drawn from the narrative shared in different times.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us keep making great content.